Recruiting is not an HR activity. When you're looking to recruit people, you need to think of it as a marketing activity.
If you flip it and you turn it into something that we're always doing, just like we're marketing for customers at all times, it's going to change how things work.
We do not have a labor shortage in the trades. There are enough people out there that want to do this work. What we have are two things. We have a retention problem, a big one. We can't keep people long-term, and we have a lack of training problem.
You have a place that people don't want to work, and now you've got people coming in the door nonstop, and you're spending so much time feeding the funnel of hiring people that you don't even invest into making a place that people want to work. It only compounds and becomes like a flywheel.
Why is it we always have time to do it over, but we never have the time to do it right?
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor.
Brian, good to have you on the show, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic this morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You've got your own show, and you've been on several podcasts, been in the game for a long time. Real quick, how has podcasting changed over the years for you?
It's become more popular. And so I get pitched so many more often, and it's harder to get on shows. But I look at podcasting as the modern day networking. I get to meet great people like yourself. You and I would have never met any other way if it wasn't for the podcast. So that's why I like it. I just get to expand my network, meet new people, have great conversations. And I tell my team all the time, if we could figure out how to just get me podcasting all day, every day, I'd be in heaven.
There you go. Well, I'm glad that you enjoy it so much. I enjoy it as well. I get to be on several, so it's a lot of fun. We had a great conversation the other day just about hiring for contractors. I think it'll be a great one for us to jump in, but just really how to approach hiring. I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think there's a lot of actions that don't fall in line with a strategy and are just solving an immediate pain with a Band-Aid. And so I think this will be a really good conversation for anyone who wants to rethink the way they hire and the way they approach building their team. So why don't you tell us really quick about Core Matters?
Yeah, so we've been around for almost 15 years. And, I've been working in the contractor space the entire time. Originally, we were helping them with marketing, lead generation, everything else. And it wasn't long after we started that they said, I don't need more leads, I need more people. And I was like, well, let's see if we can help solve that. Because, and here's the first takeaway I want everybody to hear is that recruiting is not an HR activity. When you're looking to recruit people, you need to think of it as a marketing activity. It's you putting your opportunity to work to join your team in front of the right people when they're ready to make a decision about who they want to work for. And when we shift our thinking and we think about it as marketing instead of HR, it just opens up the world for us. And so that's a big thing that we do at Core Matters is not only help with that mindset shift, but everything we do is around how do we market you as the employer of choice? How do we make sure that people know who you are? Because if you're a small contractor, there's a good chance no one's ever heard of you that is looking for a job. And so how do they know you? How do they come to like you? How do they come to trust you so that all of a sudden, that when they're ready to switch jobs, they call you first. They don't go to Indeed. They don't go through all of the process because looking for work is stressful. And so if we can target somebody and say, hey, I just want to work there. And so that's a big philosophy of ours. And everything that we do here surrounds that idea that we have to market to get the right people. And then once we get them, we've got to market to keep them. We have to promote internally and do all of those things as well. So that's what we do at Core Matters. I love it. We work with just ops heavy people businesses. So think contractors, like your people are your product. And, and I love this space too.
Very cool. Yeah, we've talked about in the past how you have two marketing funnels, one for customers and one for hires. And I think that's such an undervalued aspect of hiring and marketing is that it is to build your company. It's not just to get more customers, but it's to actually build your team. So I want to hear, let's dive into that a little bit. What are some of the activities that you're doing at Core Matters that help fill that funnel, that help do the marketing for employers?
Well, one of the first things I want people to think of is, and you have to do this in traditional marketing, and I want you to think about it when you're recruiting as well, is that you have to be able to deliver on the promise that you make. So if you go to a customer and you say, hey, I promise that I can solve this problem for you, I can fix this thing for you, but you really can't, you're going to disappoint the customer. So when you promise them that you're a better leadership team, or you've got training for them, or you've got opportunity for them, or you got great benefits and pay, and the people like each other, if you make those promises and you can't deliver on those promises, you're just going to have a revolving door of people. And so a big part of what we do is make sure that once we understand the promises you want to make in the marketplace, we got to make sure you can deliver on them. And that's a big focus for us. But to answer your question, what are some of the activities that you can do? It's every single activity that you do to get customers, you should be doing to get people. So you should be looking at your website and saying, hey, if a job seeker came to this website, what would they think about us? Would they want to buy? Right? And I say that with quotes, like, would they want to buy? Would they want to apply here? Would they want to work here? Your social media, your email list. Like this is going to be a game changer for some people. You should have an email list of prospective candidates to join your team, and you should be nurturing them over time, because full 70%, 7 out of 10 people are passively looking for work, which means they're not ready to switch right now. But maybe they will in 6 months. Maybe they will in a year. And if you don't have a nurture campaign set up with a group of people, when they are ready to switch, when they are ready to start looking for another job, if you're not top of mind, they're going to go to Indeed and they're going to go with the highest bidder and pray that it's better than where they're at today. So if you are working with a marketing team, or you're doing your own marketing and you're doing it for customers, think, how do I shift the messaging and the targeting to get in front of the candidates that we need?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are only hiring when there's a need inside of the role, that maybe someone left or retired or whatever's going on. We're growing, we need more people. You know, if you're taking that approach and you've got essentially a marketing funnel for hires, are you always leaving jobs open? And are you just always accepting applications? What's the best practice there?
I would. We call it building a bench.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is be in a position where someone quits today, or someone gets sick today, or someone retires and you were like, oh, I was hoping they really wouldn't retire. And then it happens and now you're left holding it. And you're like, now I got to start from scratch. It's really hard to get a marketing funnel started. But once it's going and it's working, it's a lot easier to keep it going. So yeah, there are certain positions that you should always be recruiting for, because you're always recruiting for them. I mean, your field techs, your CSRs, anybody that you need to hire more people when there's growth inside the company, those positions you should always be recruiting for. It doesn't mean you're always spending money on Indeed or you're always doing those kinds of things. But when someone comes to your website, they should know that there's an opportunity for them at your company at some time in the future.
Yeah, that's really good. I think what's hard about this, and why I think it's overlooked a lot, is because, one, there's a misconception that, like you said, HR or recruiting falls under an HR activity. Two, I think there's also this mindset that we don't approach hiring until we need the role. But if you flip it and you turn it into something that we're always doing, just like we're marketing for customers at all times, and it's something that is owned by a marketing function, it's going to change how things work. But that's really hard to find a company that's already thinking like that, which I think is great why you have Core Matters, because you fill that gap. You're not going to just go to a marketing agency, or I guess you could, but you're not just going to go to a marketing agency and say, hey, bring me more applicants. They're not going to understand the mindset shift from a customer to a candidate for a role as well as maybe you do. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about that process.
Well, and they're marketing companies, and I love them. I used to have one. I mean, they serve a need, and they can definitely help with this, but they have to shift their thinking too, because we're no longer focused on a conversion. What we're focused on is a nurture cycle. So you need to think of this as, hey, just because I'm building my list doesn't mean I'm done. Like, I need to build this list, and now I need to nurture. And sometimes nurture means looking through your list and going, here are 3 or 4 people I want to build a relationship with. We have a plumbing company that we've been working with, and for about a year now. And the owner calls me the other day, and he goes, "You're not going to believe it. You know that guy that I've been calling every 6 weeks for the last year? He's joining our team." And I mean, he would call him and he would say, "Hey, you want to grab happy hour? Hey, I'm going to the game this weekend. You want to come with?" Built a relationship with this guy that he was targeting. And the cool thing is the company that he was working with, big, giant, corporation type, he brought like 3 guys with him in the last couple of months. But it took a year of him being intentional about focusing on this one guy. He'd text him every once in a while, "Hey man, how things going over there?" All he was doing was saying, "Hey, when you're ready to land somewhere else, it'll be a soft landing over here." And marketing companies don't typically think like that. They typically think, how do I get someone to call you and buy today? And so it's a shift. It's a much longer cycle. But I will tell you, when you put these things in place, it's going to be a couple years, but in a couple years, you'll never have to worry about hiring again.
Yeah. So I do think that you just said, like, a lot of what you're talking about is the promise aspect, and that promise deliver equation that you mentioned earlier. I think on some of the delivery aspect, like, that may be even more difficult if you're so head down as a business owner, or your team is so over capacity that you don't actually have the time to invest and be intentional with people once they join your team. So what are some of the things, and is this also what Core Matters helps with? It's not just the promise and the branding and the recruiting aspect, but it's also, hey, let's make sure you have systems for managing these people well. What does that look like?
Yeah, I tell people that we are process designers, process engineers. We just understand the people component inside of your business. And so if you don't have these systems that can run without you, things won't happen. You have to automate the important. Keeping your people engaged, communicating with them, building relationships with your people, that's important. So how do you build systems that will either create tasks for you, create reminders for you, or just build it into your day? And something as simple as a 3-minute touch point a week, where you just ask them a couple of simple questions. And then all of a sudden, over time, you're building those relationships. I mean, who doesn't have 3 minutes?
Right.
And you ask 3 simple questions. You know, what's working? What's not working? How you feeling? Simple questions.
Yeah.
And you know what? Really the first dozen times you ask that, they're going to be like, what's working? Everything. What's not working? Nothing. How you feeling? I'm good. And you know what? Just leave it. And your 3 minutes turned into 3 seconds. And then over time, they'll start sharing more with you. The more they trust you, the more that they understand that you're asking these questions because you genuinely care. Simple thing like those 3 simple questions. I mean, it can change everything when it comes to recruiting. Because what do we do? Or sorry, retention. What do we do normally? No news is good news. I haven't heard from the boss in the last 6 months. That must mean I'm doing great. That's the mindset we have in the trades. That's the mindset we have. I haven't heard from the boss, so I must be doing good. Because the only time I hear from the boss is when the boss is mad.
Right.
And we need to shift that and change that. And all of a sudden, people are like, I hear from my boss every week, whether he's mad or not. Like, that's different. I don't want to leave that for a place where I only hear from the boss when he's mad.
Yeah. No, you have to have those rhythms, because I think a lot of people just leave it up to a trigger, meaning something bad happens, like you said, and so now I give feedback, versus like having a rhythm or a habit or a routine, whatever you want to call it, where, hey, on Tuesdays, I walk around and I talk to the guys on the job site, or I before they leave the shop, I'm joining their morning huddle or whatever it is, so that you're making yourself a little bit more known, not based on whether things are good or bad or a circumstance, but no, I'm always here. So that's good. So do you, chicken versus egg, do you focus on just bringing in more people first? Or do you focus on, no, let's make sure we have like systems for managing our people, for, investing in them and being intentional? Which one comes first?
This isn't going to be the popular answer, but we do not have a labor shortage in the trades. We don't. There are enough people out there that want to do this work. What we have are 2 things. We have a retention problem, a big one.
Yeah.
We can't keep people long-term. and we have a lack of training problem. Everybody only wants to hire the seasoned guy with 5 years experience that somebody else trained. But if we actually all took it on to train our people, we would create this endless funnel of people that want to do this work. You see, the retention problem is the big issue. We turn people all the time. They make one mistake, we fire them. They have 90% of the skills that we need, but the 10% they don't have, so we fire them, or we make their life so uncomfortable they leave. Instead of thinking, hey, if I just train that 10%, I'd have the guy I needed. But we don't have time for that. We don't want to make time for that. We think that it's easier to keep putting out the fires than it is to take the time to train the guy or to invest in the guy. You know, I ask teams all the time, why is it we always have time to do it over, but we never have the time to do it right?
Yeah.
And the reality is, when you focus on retention, you focus on building your people up, creating a great team that can deliver every time flawlessly, and they know that they're valued, they're not going to leave you. And then all of a sudden, you're not going to have this revolving door where you're always looking for that next big tech, that next great tech.
Right.
Plus, you'll increase productivity. People that are happy do better in their jobs. They produce more. And, you know, if you're struggling with productivity, it's probably because your people aren't happy. So if you put your focus there, here's the other cool thing. When you put your focus there, guess what you're doing? You're creating the system that delivers on the promise you made when you hire the next guy.
Exactly. Yeah. It only compounds and becomes like a flywheel. You know, if you create a place that people want to work, and then people want to work there and start showing up, then it makes you want to create a better place that people want to work, and it just keeps going and going.
It's just like this vicious cycle of awesome results is what it is.
Well, and then you flip that. You have a place that people don't want to work, and now you've got people coming in the door nonstop, and you're spending so much time feeding the funnel of hiring people that you don't even invest into making a place that people want to work. And so then you create a vicious cycle of just a terrible place to work. So it goes in both ways.
We have a remodeling contractor we worked with there in Kansas, and they worked with us years ago. And at the time, they were just, not everything that we do is the popular idea. And that's why it works, because what we do is so different. And in marketing, different works.
Yeah.
And I remember them just not kicking and screaming like some of our clients, but just like, I don't want to do this. This isn't going to work. It's not, I'm just stick with the system. Just stick with the system.
Yeah.
And finally we wrap up, they graduate, and they're still struggling. They're still struggling to fill positions. About 2.5 years later, they call me and they said, we stuck with it. I had no idea that this would actually happen. They go, we do not post jobs anymore. And we have more resumes of qualified people that we've already vetted that want to join our team, that are waiting in line to join our team, that we just get to focus on growth now. And every time we sell more jobs and we do more work, all of a sudden we call up the next guy and he joins our team, and he's excited to be there because we stuck with the program. We got the systems in place, and we're vetting these guys early, nurturing them long-term. And so now recruiting isn't a conversation they have anymore. It's, how do we grow? How do we grow? How do we grow? They don't have to worry about people anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just,
Well,
it's a shift in the business, and it feels so different, but people love it.
Yeah. You know, you had mentioned something about we always have time to go back to the job, but not, what can you say the quote again?
We always have time to do it over, but we never have time to do it right.
Well, and I wanted to kind of pinpoint that, because we can't talk about hiring and recruiting in a silo. You know, it's a component of a overall business, and there has to be balance in it. And I think the main reason we always make time to do it over rather than making time to do it right is because for a lot of people, they're probably pricing jobs incorrectly. They aren't giving an adequate scope of work on the jobs. And so it creates this cycle of you having to go and win the new job to be able to fund the job that you're finishing up. And
absolutely,
it's all of these issues that, you know, hey, yeah, you want to go and build a great team. You should absolutely go do that. You want to build an employer brand that has great promises for people that work with you. Those are great aspirations and things that you are worth doing. But make sure you're balanced in your business and don't just, I think that's probably where a lot of the people are saying, oh, you can't find good people anymore. Or there's not enough people in the trades. It's like, no, there's not enough companies that are worth working at in the trades because they're stressed out, they're underpriced,
yes.
all those kinds of things. Yeah.
Bingo. And that's the thing. So one of the things that we look at, I mentioned employer of choice earlier. And I have a real simple definition. You're the employer of choice when you're the place that people want to work and you're the place where people want to stay. Like they'll fight to stay there. You're the employer of choice. They choose you. That's what we're saying. They choose you before they're an employee. They choose you after they're an employee. That's all we want. But one of the things that's really critical, and I get pushback on this one all the time, is that they are an industry leader in growth and reputation. And so the reputation, people usually like, oh, I get that. I got to have a good reputation, a good brand. People have to know I have good reviews, that kind of stuff. But then they push back on the growth. And they're like, why do I have to be an industry leader in growth? And I go, I'm not saying you have to be, 300% a year, but if your industry's growing at 12%, you need to be at 15 or 20. Because you know what? Nobody wants to join a company that's dying.
Right. Or stagnant.
Nobody sits there and says, you know what? I'm going to go work for this guy until he's bankrupt or he lays me off because he doesn't have enough work. That's not what people want. They want to join a team and they're going to want to stay when they know that you're growing and growing at a healthy pace, which means you're outpacing the industry average. And then all of a sudden, they're not worried about it. So to your point about the business has to be healthy, the business has to be working, the business has to be, you have to be pricing jobs correctly. You can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul so that you can fund your guys. Your guys know this. They know that you're struggling. They know that you're not pricing the jobs right. They're feeling it because they're feeling the pressure from you to get the job done faster.
Right.
And nobody wants to stay on that team.
No, I think we don't give employees enough credit a lot of times for how smart they are and intuitive, and they know what's going on. They may not know the details of they think that whenever you bid the job at $1 million that you're rich and you're wealthy. Maybe they have that perspective. Maybe they don't.
They do think that,
but they have a sixth sense of hey, things are going well at the company or things aren't. Boss is stressed. Boss isn't stressed. We're doing shady things. We're not doing shady. They know, right? People have that alarm inside of them.
I tell it like this. So. It's like children. When mom and dad are fighting, they always want to do it behind the closed doors so the kids don't know the kids know mom and dad are fighting. They're not dumb.
Yeah.
It's the same thing here. Your people know when there's a problem. They know when there's not a problem. They see you working crazy hours and stress, like you said, or they see you spending a little bit more time taking some vacation and coming in late and just enjoying things. And everything just seems to run more smoothly. They know.
They know. Yeah, for sure.
Quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later, transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call, and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is? OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode.
Okay, so I want to dive into this a little bit more. One of the things that we talked about in our last call was how people are measuring hours a lot of time as a way of tracking their employees and making sure that things are getting done. But you talked about measuring behaviors, not hours. Maybe share a little bit about that approach and how you came with that mindset.
Yeah. So productivity comes from two places, and that's what we're talking about. Are they productive? Because productive employees are profitable employees, and we want to make a profit on all of our employees. Otherwise, why aren't we just doing the work? So we have to look at productivity, but productivity comes in two ways. Number one is, am I swinging the hammer fast enough? Am I not denting things fast enough? Like, am I doing the job that you pay me to do fast enough, and quality and all of that? But what comes beyond that is the behavioral side of things. And we tend to overlook this in the trades, is that, I stand in front of rooms of people and I say, hey, just throw out what makes a great employee. What makes a great employee? You know what nobody has ever said? Someone that can run my CRM, someone that knows how to close a ticket, someone that knows. They never say that. What they say is, I want someone that greets the customer with a smile. I want someone that cleans up the job site. I want someone deserving of a 5-star review. I want someone that shows up a little early to do that little extra. That's how every single contractor I've ever talked to has described a great employee.
Yeah.
Well, those things have nothing to do with their skills. It's everything to do with behavior. So not only should we be assessing that in the interview process and making sure we're hiring people that have those right behaviors, but we need to have a way to track and measure the behaviors inside of the organization. I love how Simon Sinek says it. He talks a lot about working with the Marines, and they have a productivity and a trust scale. And the guy that's highly productive, but nobody trusts, that's the jerk that nobody wants to work with. The guy that everybody trusts, even if he's not the most productive, they're like, we need this guy on our team. Trust comes from behavior, not from activities. And I mean, this is some of the highest performing organizations in the world, and they've learned this. So we need to adopt that too and say, we need to start measuring the behaviors that we want, reinforcing the behaviors, and focus a little bit less on the activities.
Yeah. So, I think before you can even measure the behaviors, I think the first step is probably defining the behaviors, right?
You need
and
to
I don't
know
think
what
enough people
behaviors
have
you
done
want.
that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not just about defining KPIs of productivity like you mentioned, but it's about understanding, and it's not even just, we have our core values. Core values are wonderful, but what are the behaviors that make those values shine, right? I always think about it in terms of, hey, you have your core values, and then each one of those core values has core behaviors that fall underneath it. And those identify, if someone's actually living out the core values or not. But how do you help people actually track core behaviors? Because that seems like a very manual process, maybe. What is the best way? What's, if someone's like, okay, yeah, sounds good, Ryan, but like, how do I do that?
Yeah. Well, before I tell you that, I'm going to tell everybody, here's a little trick, a little secret to what you're talking about with core values. If you make sure that your core values are a verb, it's an action, they're now behaviors. So you don't need a long list of things to remember. But I agree with your point. Like, a lot of times core values, they're the summation of a bunch of behaviors.
Yeah.
Or like what we teach is, let's just make your core values your behaviors, the ones that are most important. And then you kind of short circuit the system. But here's the thing, every behavior has an outcome. And it's the outcome that we track. And I understand that is people thinking, oh, that's a lagging indicator. Yes, you're right. But sometimes we need to figure out what that outcome is before we figure out what's the real thing we're going to measure. But when we talk about punctuality, that's one that comes up a lot in the trades. I need a guy that's punctual. Early is on time. I know so many guys that think that. If you show up less than 7 minutes before we start work, you're late. Yeah. And they have this mindset that early is on time. So how do we track that behavior? It's easy. You start punching a clock. Like, it's not hard, but we don't want to do that because that's more work for us as employers. We have to manage that now for them to punch a clock. But that's one way to do it. Another behavior that I hear a lot of people talk about is they want guys that are constantly learning, constantly figuring out how to get better at their craft. Guys that are taking the initiative, maybe they're listening to podcasts or they're doing something else. So track the trainings that they're in. Measure that. All right, so you're someone that I want you training. So what are you working on right now? What podcasts are you listening to? What YouTubers are you subscribed to? What books are you reading? It's super easy to track that stuff.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
here's the thing to remember about behaviors is the behaviors don't always have to directly relate to their job. So like, for example, if you want guys that are always learning, always doing something, if they're reading a personal book around communication, or they're really reading a relationship book so they have a better relationship with their kids, that will come back to you in your business. Like you can support them on that. As
Yeah.
long as they're getting better at life, that will come back to the job site.
Yeah.
So you can measure all of that stuff.
Yeah, you can. And I think if you don't, Ryan, I don't know how to get a development platform that I can see what they're training on and track their progress. And Ryan, I'm going to get so much pushback if these guys are clocking in every single day and all this kind of stuff. I still think those things are definitely worthwhile in implementing, even if there's pushback, even if it's challenging, but it might be very difficult to, as a solo person that's focused on it, to do it. I think one underrated way is to have a one-on-one every week. And yes, it's manual, but just subjectively identify behaviors, talk about behaviors, and make sure that you're talking about them regularly. Especially with AI these days, you can record the conversation and have a full summary of everything. And then you can go back and you can look at all the history of it. And I think that's just an easy way to subjectively, hey, do they have the behaviors? Do they not have behaviors? I spent 10 minutes with them on a Monday morning, and now I talked about what happened the entire last week. And we have a really good way of measuring, are they living up to the behaviors or not?
I can't agree with you more. A legal pad and a pen can be an amazing thing to track this. You know, every guy's got his own sheet, and you have that one-on-one, or you have that daily huddle, or whatever it is, however you're connecting with your people. And it doesn't have to be long. It just has to be consistent, has to be regular. You have to protect that time. But you just flip to the legal pad, the page, and you're like, oh, that's what we talked about last time. Here's what you're working on. Like we think that because we live in a very technologically driven society that we can't go the simple way. You know, we're always looking for that new CRM to automate stuff and do all this other stuff. No. Pad and paper is amazing.
Yeah.
And you don't have to overdo it. Like we have a lot of clients that they just use Google Sheets and they track everything in a Google Sheet. You don't need software to do this. In fact, if you even ask me if there's a good one, I would not be able to tell you because we never recommend that.
Well, I think we always try to make it easier. And sometimes simpler is easier. But I think also with a lot of these things, you're trying to set up this software or whatever as a shortcut to not have to put in the work, and shortcuts lead to dead end, right? It's always true. If you're always looking for the shorter path, the path of least resistance, you're likely going to fall into a dead end. And so it's going to require work. You want to start measuring behaviors, make it a priority for yourself, you know? Yeah. And I think another thing that I will mention is if you notice a behavior, don't wait for the one-on-one every week, or even worse, the people that aren't doing one-on-ones, don't wait for the hard conversation every quarter, every year when you do a review. Like in the moment, identify the behavior. Hey, I loved how you handled that phone call. Like that's exactly how we need to be doing it every single time. Hey, you're complaining a little bit too much. Like there's one thing about being like someone who's a little bit pessimistic and is, you know, trying to improve and to sees that we can do things better. And there's a difference in that. And then someone who just doesn't like their work, and you're not liking your work and it's affecting the entire team. We need to stop that behavior. Like you just have to be ready to have those conversations. And again, you're worried about the profitability of a job, and if you have enough money to pay payroll and all these kinds of things, you can't really you shy away from those conversations where you have to give that immediate feedback, because if they leave, you're screwed. Like I get it. So you have to be running the good business, but like in the moment is some of the best feedback, and the way to measure it, because now it's a memorable conversation.
Yeah. I mean, and think about this for a second, and this is going to be an oversimplification, but when you're raising children or you're training a dog, an animal. You don't sit there and, the animal chews on your shoes, and then next month or next quarter, you have a conversation with the dog about how it shouldn't be chewing on your shoes. Or a kid who did a horrible job on a spelling test. You don't ignore it, and at the end of the year say, hey, your spelling sucks. We never do that in our personal lives, but we do it all the time at work because we don't want tough conversations. People should never be surprised at what you think of their performance.
Right.
Ever. You don't wait for the quarter. You know how many times I've talked to somebody that says, I got my annual review, and the information that the boss gave me would have been awesome 11 months ago. Because he said, for the last year, I've been sucking it at this. It would have been great 11 months ago because I could have changed. But now the boss is so mad at me, he's not even giving me a shot. Like, whose fault is that?
Yeah, it's the boss's.
Yeah.
And at the same time, on the other side of that, like you said, those 3 important questions that you can ask daily if you want in 3 minutes. What's not working is not asked enough. And just like the employee would love to have that feedback in the moment much sooner rather than wait 11 months, you want to know what's not working sooner so that you can fix it and make things work. And maybe you wait until it's that, annual conversation that you have. And now you're learning that, oh, wow, we could have increased productivity by 1% on every single job in the history if we would have fixed what wasn't working. Like, huge light bulb moment there. So there's only benefits from communicating more regularly and talking about behaviors, talking about what's not working. That's the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we do some exit interviews once in a while, just to, when there's something off in an organization and they've got turnover problems and we've got to figure out what's really going on. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people. It just drives me nuts that I can do 10 things right and not hear about it ever. But I do one thing wrong and I never hear the end of it.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people that are listening right now run an organization like that? Got to constantly remind my guys of all the screw ups they make. But you can't take 2 seconds to say thank you, great job, attaboy, whatever it is. You can't take the time to do that. Again, we have time to do it over, but not time to do it right. Sometimes people need to be built up. And here's another thing, and this is a whole different episode, but this is why we have a mental health problem in the trades. This is why guys, I don't know if you know this, but construction has a 5 times the national average suicide rate.
Yeah.
Construction. Why? Because they get beat up at home. They get beat up on the job site. Nobody values them. Nobody appreciates them. They have no one to turn to. We live in this very individualistic society. Even though they're on crews on the job site, it's still about your performance, not the crew's performance. We don't bring the crews together. And these guys feel alone. And I'm not saying that that's the only thing going on. There's a lot going on, and we don't have time to unpack that. But sometimes these guys just need to know that they're doing a good job, and they just need to hear it. And it costs you nothing to tell them they're doing a good job, but it costs you everything when all you do is focus on the mistakes that they make.
Yeah. No, it's important. They're people too. And I think that's a differentiator for people in terms of employer branding. If you treat people with care, people are going to want to be around. That's a good retention tool, but it's a good marketing tool as well. If they can tell that you care, it's huge. Okay. So I want to move on to another thing that we had talked about in our previous conversation. Yeah. But the cost of a bad hire. I think a lot of guys know what a bad hire is. They've tried to do the process themselves. They put the ad on Indeed, they go through, and they can't see all the hundreds of applications they got that are just tire kickers most of the time anyways. And then they end up scheduling interviews. There's a bunch of no-shows. There's this one guy. We have this need. We're going to go ahead and hire him because he's a heartbeat. What is the cost of that bad hire that we have?
Oh my gosh. So many ways that this can be a problem for you. I'm sure that if we just look at everybody across the board, when you onboard someone, there are costs that don't show up on your P&L. There are costs. There's the lower productivity from the supervisor who has to train them. There's lower productivity from the crew who's got the new guy that they've got to make sure he understands how to do it, our process. There's the There's the time, the opportunity cost that your trainers or whoever else has to work with them outside of the crew. Like there's all of these costs that we never associate with just bringing on someone new, whether they're good or bad. We've got those costs. Now, if they turn out bad, it's a problem. But what are the other things? We've got customer satisfaction issues. So if we got a job that goes a little sideways, now all of a sudden you've got a customer that may not ever want to come back because you hired the wrong guy. You've got morale issues, and morale is a real thing. Morale affects engagement. Disengagement costs companies so much money. It's ridiculous. We had one small contractor. They estimated that disengagement cost them $3.7 million a year.
Wow.
That's real money ripped right off the bottom line, right out of profit. Disengagement. Well, when you hire the wrong person, guess what that does? The rest of the team sits around and goes, does the owner even care? Does the supervisor even care? Like, why would you hire this Yahoo? Do they even know? And then they start doubting, do they even know how to run the business if they keep hiring these Yahoos, these wrong people? Like there's a lot that goes into morale and what that can do to impact productivity. It also impacts your turnover. When I see you hiring a bunch of B and C players, if I'm a rock star, if I'm an A player, I'm going to go play for a team that hires A players.
Yeah.
So if you've got good people on your team and you keep giving them just the people that no one else wants, well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose your good people because you keep throwing bad people at a problem. So, I mean, it impacts every area of the business.
Yeah.
And then we also find that people that aren't great, they have more health issues. They have more safety issues. They have more work comp issues. Like you pick a category on the P&L and I promise you it's costing you something in there when you make a bad hire.
Well, I think you've described a situation for a lot of listeners where they know the bad hire that you're talking about. They feel the disengagement, the hurt to their reputation and customer satisfaction, the morale to the team, and the cost of mistakes and all the different things that you mentioned. So, I think that there's so much on this hiring aspect and this recruiting aspect that you have to get right. And then once you do get right, it will be an unlock in so many of the other areas. You had mentioned something earlier that you should profit off employees. And I think it's a very true and accurate statement, but I think there's probably some people that haven't thought of it in those terms, and maybe they should. And just like you have a marketing funnel for customers and you're thinking of profit per customer, right? You're thinking of what the revenues is coming in from that customer and then how much we actually profit from it. Same aspect, you should treat it the same way with employees, because at the end of the day, profit's the most important thing because it allows you to do the subjective things that you want to do. You want to have a culture that helps people in the trades have a better family, help them have a better well-being. You want it to be able to be a catapult for them in their life and allow them to achieve their goals and dreams. All those subjective things that you want to achieve in the business are only happening because of the profit. And so you have to be thinking about it in terms of what is my profit per employee. Are there ways that you help people track things like that? Or is that more on the accounting side? How do you, frame conversations around revenue per employee, profit per employee?
I am not a numbers guy.
Okay.
I'm just not too into the details on that. But I understand. Here's something that I found, and this is a mindset shift. I'll tell you, so much of the work we do is getting people to think differently about this. So often I see org charts. You got a CEO, you've got a president, you got the operations leader, the finance leader, all that. You know what box is almost missing almost every time I look at an org chart? The owner. No one ever puts the stakeholder on there. And guess what? If you own the company, you're part of that org chart.
Oh yeah.
I mean, whether you consider yourself a shareholder like they do in publicly traded companies, or a stakeholder or an owner, well, I don't care what you call it, but you are risking something. You are taking a risk by running this company, owning this company. You took a risk. That risk needs to come with a return on investment.
Yeah.
And if you are not thinking of it from an owner's hat, and you don't have to sit in the owner's seat a lot, but you got to put that hat on once in a while and say, wait a minute, I've got a guy here that I'm paying $80,000 a year to, and I can't get him to do a profitable job because he's not that great, because nobody trained him. No, I'm not training him because he can't seem to learn this stuff. Or maybe you've never even thought about it. When we think of marketing, and the 3 to 1 is always the baseline number. But if I'm going to spend $1 on marketing, I should be able to get $3 back in revenue.
Yeah.
Duh. At least 3, sometimes 5, sometimes 12. Who knows? But we're always thinking, if I'm going to spend $1 in marketing, I can't just get $1 back.
Yeah.
Because if I just get $1 back, like, why spend that dollar? Same thing with your people. And I tell people it's 2.5 to 3 times. Think about marketing again. If I pay $80,000, I better be able to show $240,000 worth of revenue because that employee exists.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I have to.
Yeah. And you
Because
have to think in those terms.
and people are like, oh, I don't need to make that much. Yeah, you do, because you got to cover overhead, they got to cover benefits, they got to cover insurance.
And is that
all
something
the
you should
things
communicate
they have to be part of.
Is that something you should communicate to the people on your team? Hey guys, you got to be bringing in 250,000 to be able to justify your role here, or I have to.
I mean, if you're doing technicians, so service technicians, for example, yeah, I think they should know that you have to be producing at this level for me to justify your existence. And you can be much nicer about it than that. Like, we're having an open conversation, but
yeah, you can set it as, there's incentives. You could do all sorts of things to make it like worthwhile to know that information and to be keenly aware of it.
Yeah. So. But if you're, let's say you're running a construction team, and these guys have nothing to do with the bidding process. They have nothing to do with the sales process. They have nothing to do with that. They have to know that that job has to be profitable based on the way you sold it. And if they can't do a profitable job, then they're not generating a profit for you. So maybe the return there isn't as big as it would be, say, for that service guy that's out there selling. But if you're bidding a job at 15 points or 20 points, and that crew cannot get you those 20 points, I think that needs to be communicated with them. Absolutely. We hold our guys accountable for safety issues and for waste and for, destruction of property and for being behind schedule. But we rarely ever hold them accountable to, you got to make sure this job is profitable how I bid it.
Yeah.
We don't want to have those conversations.
No,
I don't know why, but we don't usually have those.
No, and I think communicating that a little bit more clearly and in a positive manner, not in like, you're not making me a profit.
I gave you the short version, like the behind closed doors version, but
yeah, but like, finding a way to deliver it in an inspirational, motivational, framework, I think can really make a difference in making people want to show up and do a better job and be more efficient and track things and go to work to make it a profitable job, because people want to be challenged. They want to do something that's meaningful. And they want to feel like they're achieving inside their role. And if you've set a number for them to target and, something they can work towards, that's only going to help achieve those things.
For the contractor that maybe isn't a Tony Robbins motivational type person, and they're just like, that's not me, which a lot of them aren't.
Yeah.
Here's something that I've learned. And this is something we use all the time to help them understand it, but we give them these tools. Analogies are amazing. I've used a couple analogies here where I've talked about personal relationships or, training a new pet, right? People understand the personal side of things and can relate it back to business. People are not going to understand business at the level you do as the owner, because that's not what they do. It's why people don't hand a P&L to, their hourly workers and say, hey, here's how we look, because they aren't going to understand what they're looking at. So think about the analogies that work in personal life and just share that with them. You wouldn't want to stay at a bank that doesn't pay you interest, would you? You wouldn't want to give your money to a financial advisor who can't earn you a return, would you? So think about it from I wouldn't want to hire an employee who can't earn me a return, because I'd be better off just putting that money with my financial advisor, but I'm investing in my business because that's what I want to create.
Yeah.
And those simple tie-ins to personal life can be incredibly beneficial to not only the communication relationship you have with people, but helping them understand why this stuff matters.
Yeah. No, it's really good. Ryan, this has been awesome. I've learned a lot from you and Core Matters. Love the service that you're offering. I want to leave our listeners with like one thing they can actually do this week. Regardless of where they are, what's one thing that you would recommend? It can be anything that would just help them to
we already talked
improve their
about it.
culture. Yeah.
If you're not doing a daily or a weekly huddle, start it now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not, and you don't have to make the time to do one-on-one. Do a daily huddle with your entire team. Bring 10 guys together and say, hey, 3 questions. What's working well for you guys? What's not? How you guys feeling? What do you need support on? Pick a question that is actionable. Or heck, even just do one question. If you just did a daily huddle and said, like, I love this one. We worked with a client on this, and sleep is so important, right? We all know that sleep is so important to our health. They go around in their huddle and they say, scale of 1 to 10, how'd you sleep last night? That's it. That's it. Guess what? The guy that shows 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, now I know, dude, we need to huddle up. Like, let's talk. What's going on? Simple question like that.
Yeah.
But start a daily or a weekly huddle. I mean, I love daily, but if you don't have the time for that or can't wrap your mind around it, just do weekly, but stick to it. You got to do it every week, because if you miss one, now it's 2 weeks in between. So that's the thing that I would say.
No, I think daily huddle's fantastic. And, even just setting the tone for the day can be so important, even outside of all the culture aspects and all that kind of stuff. Just like hey, we are all here at this time and we're talking. It gives something a reason to show up, a reason to be there on time, a reason to there's accountability, there's peer pressure, there's all these things. I think that's great. Okay. Establish a huddle. Love it. How can people get in touch with you, Ryan? What's the best way?
If you want to reach out to me personally, I'm all over LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, DM me there. CoreMatters.com. It's our website. You can learn about our process. We've got a bunch of educational material, some stuff you guys can sign up for. And if anybody's interested in knowing a little bit more about my book, which we didn't get to talk about, but I wrote a book called Hire Better People Faster. Breaks down a lot of this. Anybody that's interested, if you go to CoreMatters.com/free book, just pay for shipping and handling. I autograph a copy and I'll mail it off to you. So I want to put that book in as many hands as I can.
Love that. Love that. Okay. We will link to CoreMatters.com. We will link to your LinkedIn, and we will also put that free book link in the show notes for listeners as well. Ryan, thank you for your time. Great to chat with you. Appreciate your wealth of knowledge and sharing all your expertise. It's really valuable for us, and we appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much. I've had a great time.
All right. Take care.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory. It's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're going to love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out The Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.